Hello, everyone. Hello. Let me just fix this for a second. Move that down. There. Awesome. Hi. Hello. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me, just so I know that you can hear me on the chat. Welcome, everybody, to another live Q&A. Thanks, Barb. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Settle in. This live Q&A is going to be 1 hour. I have to cut it off at exactly 1 hour. So I'm going to do my best to stay on target and on time with the message I want to share and answering as many questions as I can for you guys. Hello. So good to be with you guys. I always love doing these. So back again doing it. I wanted to share a quick message before I started answering questions. And the message that came in and that I've been practicing the past week is about multi-dimensionality, being multi-dimensional, right? So we always hear the word, we're being multi-dimensional, or we are multi-dimensional beings. And I started really dissecting that this past week and watching myself experience me in multiple dimensions at the same time, right? Because that's what it means to be multidimensional and accessing your multidimensionality. It's being both in the third dimension, the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension, all at the same time. Meaning that your physical form isn't anchored in those three dimensions. Your physical form is anchored in the third dimension because it's still third dimensional, still pretty physical. Maybe the fourth dimension, but it's definitely not anchored physically in 5D yet. But we are accessing the fourth dimensional consciousness field and the fifth dimensional consciousness field every moment of every now. And we're doing it in a quantum space. So what does that mean? It means that in every now moment, as we're walking around in our human form, we are accessing three separate fields of consciousness in every now. So we're accessing the third dimension, which has a very vast spectrum of consciousness, which has a vast duality to it, right? And the ego structure is very much in control. We're accessing a fourth dimensional field that's slightly higher in frequency than the third. That's where we are starting to be more present, right? We're starting to listen to higher self. We're starting to let go of control. We're starting to move into our heart centers. So throughout your day, what you'll find yourself doing is every once in a while noticing you'll become more aware of yourself. You'll become more aware of your energy field. You'll become more aware of your emotions. You'll become more aware of your higher self. Am I hearing it? Am I not? It's a massive amount of awareness in the fourth dimensional field, right? And then you start to access the fifth dimensional field, which is when you are literally in flow state. It is where there is no control, where you are in the river and off you go. Your heart is expanded and open. You are not living in a dualistic view anymore, right? And so what's happening as we are becoming multidimensional, hello everyone, welcome, so happy that you're here. What's happening as we're becoming multidimensional, we've always been multidimensional, but we are accessing our multidimensionality, is that you can imagine that you're standing in form right here, and in every single now moment, you are also accessing these other two fields. It's available to you, and you're all starting to access it, right? So it's almost like a filing system. Like, how much am I experiencing the 3D consciousness today? Or in this now moment, how much am I accessing the 4D consciousness, right? And so then it becomes, I'm not going to go into this I'm going to do an actual video this evening about multidimensionality, but it becomes getting really clear on what is the 4D consciousness. What is 5D consciousness, right? We want to really understand it as much as we can so that we can get more conscious and aware of how we are in every now moment, because you know that it's a choice, right? We always have a choice as to what we want to play in and experience and be in. Even when you feel like you're being overwhelmed and bombarded by the ego and by fear and by anxiety and stress, right? you still have a choice to try to pull yourself out of that and reach out into these other consciousnesses, or you can just feel yourself kind of in that 3D consciousness, but at least be aware of the fact, oh, I am in the stress, in the anxiety, in the worry, in the nauseousness, like whatever that is, I'm in that right now. I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware that there are two other fields currently available for me to access if I want. I'm not going to, but they're available for me, right? And then we crawl ourselves out of whatever experience we were having that really pushed us really deeply into that 3D. And we breathe again and we're like, oh, okay, I can access these other dimensional fields. So that's our multidimensionality. That is what we are doing in every now moment in our physical form. How aware can you get of your multidimensionality, and what fields am I tapping into, right? So quickly, if you want to just get a quick sort of synopsis on the three different fields, a third dimensional field is where you are really rooted in the duality of everything. You're judging things, your things are good and bad, right and wrong. Your ego's involved massively. There's a lot of control. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of paradigms and programs and belief systems that you're playing in that kind of hold you in a constricted sort of space, right? 4D consciousness is more of an expanded state where you're starting to tap into higher self, right? So you're starting to understand what the higher self is and if you can even hear the higher self. You're at least trying to hear that, even though the higher self is always communicating with you. 4D consciousness is where you are becoming more of an observer. So you're watching everything you're doing. You're making different choices. You're watching your thoughts and your beliefs. The 4D field is where you're also clearing and purging very courageously every now moment with every emotion, thought, and belief that's coming up to be cleared out, right? The 4D consciousness is where you're starting to look at the paradigms and programs that we have been in and playing, and you're starting to watch the game from above, right? So you're looking out and saying, holy cow, I've been programmed this whole time. Look at this game that we're playing in, right? That's 4D consciousness. You're starting to move into that that heart-centered space, right? 5D consciousness is when you are in flow. 5D consciousness is when there is no right, wrong. 5D consciousness is when you're not accessing the ego for your directions. The ego is quiet when you are choosing what is next, when you are being in every now moment. 5D consciousness is being in every now moment, present. 5D consciousness is understanding that there is no right and wrong and that everything is occurring exactly and divinely as it's supposed to, regardless of my own human emotions around it, right? There's so much more that I can go into about these three different fields. But just the purpose of this message about multidimensionality, you guys, is to just start to get conscious that there's three fields that you can tap into in every now moment, and all of you are tapping into that right now. So can you get aware of it? Oh, I was just in 5D consciousness for 15 minutes, right? Or, oh my God, I was in that in-between field, which is the 4D, where I was aware and I was observing, but I was feeling my human emotions pretty intensely, but I was also able to kind of recognize the present moment state I was in, right? So you're starting to really navigate and learn our multidimensionality. It's really amazing. It's super cool. Because there will be a time where it's not like we're never going to be able to tap into 3D consciousness if you evolve into a 5D consciousness and anchor down in there. You're always going to have access because it's the quantum space. Quantum field means that everything is available in that now moment, everything, including the 3D consciousness, right? So there's going to be many years of us doing this and navigating this from 3D to 4D to 5D. So we're in kindergarten learning these three separate, distinct fields of consciousness available and around us in every now moment. And we're accessing it by increasing our own frequency within the physical form, right? So there are many, many humans on the earth plane right now that are not vibrating at a high enough frequency to even tap into a 5D consciousness yet, right? They don't even know how to be present moment yet. Not because they don't understand it, but because the vibration within their own physical form hasn't reached the frequency in order to tap that consciousness, right? So every field holds a frequency and a spectrum of frequency. And you have to be vibrating within your own physical form in order to tap into that. But as you know, through the conscious ascension process, there's always this ebb and flow of your own frequency until you're anchored down into a frequency. Once you anchor in, there's not this massive up and down, right? But there's always this little kind of roller coaster ride of frequency that you're experiencing as you are ascending. And so what that means is that your frequency will increase and then it will decrease a little bit. Then it will increase and then it will decrease a little bit. And as it's increasing, it's tapping into 5D. And when it decreases, it's bringing yourself back into in a contracted state, into 3D. And then you're expanding. And in between, you're feeling that 4D consciousness. Point being, start to watch your multidimensionality. We're all awakening into it. And there's nothing that needs to be kind of activated. Your abilities in these other dimensions and in these other fields get activated just as the light starts to turn on. Okay. So that's my spiel about that. I'm doing a journey with the Octurians on October 24th. So next month, the Octurians want to do a journey all about the multidimensionality of us, activating kind of, I wouldn't say activating. I don't really like the word activating, but they're going to be bringing in high frequency light and showing us where we can bring our awareness within our own physical forms to access ourselves, our multidimensionality, which just means the ability to be in these other dimensions easier, right? So they're going to kind of show us and navigate our physical form. So I'm really excited to bring them in October 24th. That'll be fun. Okay, so let's begin, because I'm only going to be here for another 45 minutes, and I want to get as many questions as I can answered in that time. I want to thank everyone first before I go. I want to thank everyone who joined the Palladian journey last Friday. It was awesome that we had so many of you here, and I deeply appreciate you guys being a part of that journey. And I want to thank everyone that is joining the StarGate Circle right now on Patreon. I'm starting that online community, and I've already got so many people signing up. I'm really excited about it. We're going to do our first live Wednesday, October 2nd. I do 3 lives a month over there, probably more. I still am doing the live Q&As here on YouTube, but I did want to thank those that have already joined. I'm really excited to start that. Okay, so let's begin. Let me start answering some questions. What's coming up for everybody? What does the collective need to hear right now? I really want to pull in some questions that the entire collective really needs to hear at this now moment, so we can serve everybody here on this live and that are going to watch it in the replay. So that is the intention. So let's go. Okay. So let's begin. Okay. Tanya, is the moving between the dimensions what is causing the spaciness and the vertigo sense of movement? Okay, yes, it could be. Absolutely. So that's a good point. I've never actually thought about it like that. But yeah, now that you kind of can start to actually understand that there's 3 separate fields of consciousness around you, and that you're literally your physical form is increasing into them and then decreasing back down, right? And then you're increasing into it and then you're decreasing back down. So absolutely, the vertigo feeling, the headaches, the nauseousness, the spaciness, all of these things is your physical form learning how to hold the higher frequencies, tapping into the higher frequencies, and then bringing yourself back down into the 3rd dimension where your physical form is anchored. Tapping into those frequencies and then bringing yourself back down into the 3rd dimension, right? So it feels like you're in a spin cycle in the wash, right? But if you look at it in terms of energy, you are doing this at all times. And the more conscious you can get, Tanya, the more you'll realize when I'm spacey, when I am kind of out of it or feeling vertigo or whatever you may be feeling, it's possible that, and feeling kind of ungrounded, tap into the energy of your body in that moment, because I guarantee you're in an expanded state. You're in a higher frequency state. I always talk about the fact that I wish we had a weight that we could stand on, a scale, So in those moments, we could jump on the scale and it will tell us, oh my God, your frequency is at a 4.6, right? And then 2 hours later, you're feeling more normal and grounded down in, and it's like, oh, you're back to a 3.7. If we could actually see the increase and the influx of our frequency in every now moment, we would be like, oh my God, no wonder I feel crazy. No wonder there's days and even hours where I'm feeling these highs and lows, so to speak, right? So yeah, when you get this kind of vision of really what's happening, these three dimensions that's around you that you're tapping into and then pulling back. Now, when I say tapping into, it's not outside of you, even though it is outside of you. So there are, it's almost like we're in a third dimensional cloud right now. So this third dimensional frequency is outside of us, right? But it's in us. So we're holding that 3D frequency, which allows us to be in the 3D field of consciousness. Okay. So a 4D field of consciousness is what you are moving and tapping into, but you are holding that 4D consciousness inside of you. Same with 5D. So there's a 5D field that exists that you will at one point anchor down into and exist as in physical form. In the meantime, your physical form is accessing that 5D consciousness, shifting into that 5D consciousness while you're still being in 3D, shifting into 4D, right? So there's all this stuff happening. That's why everybody talks about the ascension symptoms, right? And all the symptoms that we're feeling. It's like, well, geez, no wonder. Look what we're doing on just based on energy. Forget about what, ascension in terms of like, all the other stuff, just in terms of energy, what we're doing. It's like, oh my God, no wonder, right? And so the more aware you can get, the more you can feel your resonance, your energetic vibration, the more clear and the more you're going to understand this. You're going to understand the symptoms. You're going to understand it all. So yeah, vertigo, spaciness, time stopping, right? Because when you move into the next highest dimensional field, time starts to slow down or speed up. When you move down into a lower dimension like the third, time is slowing down. When you move out, it speeds up. When it speeds up, it feels like it's stopping. Great question. Anita, do you still feel all the human emotions in 5D? No, not okay. So here's the tricky piece. You're still in 3D. Okay. So we are not out of 3D consciousness. Remember, 4D is here, 5D is here, right? So we're in all three at the exact same now moment. That's the tricky piece about ascending, is that you can't escape the 3 and the 4D while you're in 5D yet, until your physical form has actually anchored you down into a 5D consciousness, okay? But even then, because it's a quantum space, you still have access to it, but you get to choose. And most likely, a lot of us won't choose to play in that 3D consciousness. Well, let's just talk about right now, Anita. Right now, when you are experiencing yourself in a 5D consciousness, meaning that you are feeling very expanded, aligned, connected, flow state, trust, surrendering, heart spaced open, all that stuff. No duality, no judgment, no attachment. When you're in that moment, even if it's for 20 minutes, you will not be tapping into, in those 20 minutes when you're experiencing 5D consciousness, you're not going to be tapping into the lower dimensional emotions existing in 3D, like fear, anxiety, rage, anger, those types of things. You won't be tapping into while you are experiencing yourself in 5D consciousness. However, what happens and what you'll start noticing is that in every now moment, when you are integrating all of these, you will find yourself maybe in 1 second sort of in a present moment state, and then 20 seconds later or a minute later or 3 minutes later, you're getting angry because somebody just cut you off, right? And so you're moving through these consciousnesses pretty quickly like this. And the reason that happens is because your body hasn't anchored into a higher frequency yet. So you're still anchored in a 3D consciousness so you can easily drop down into 3D and tap into 3D really fast. What's starting to happen to a lot of us is that we are starting to anchor into the fourth dimension. When you start to anchor into the fourth dimension, you are playing in the 5D consciousness longer, and you're not being pulled down into the 3D consciousness as long, right? So what does that mean? It means that in every now moment, as you're playing in this world, you will be tapping into more of these higher consciousnesses like flow, trust, letting go of trying to control things, not judging things, not having a dualistic perspective about things, understanding that every human is perfect and divine, that there are no victims, that everybody is choosing every now moment. You'll find yourself being in that state more and more and not experiencing the lower frequency emotions in 3D, right? So you won't be experiencing lack or fear, victimhood, those kinds of things as much. So as we start shifting and ascending, and you start to anchor into a 4D field, you start to tap into 5D consciousness more and more and more, the less you're going to feel the lower 3D consciousnesses. Now, when you are completely anchored into a 5D consciousness, which again, most humans are not yet, because you'd be able to basically see right through their form. It doesn't mean the human isn't living in a 5D consciousness field as often as they possibly can, but they haven't anchored down. When you are living in a 5D consciousness at all time, okay, whether you're anchored or whether you're just in 3D physical form, but you're accessing 5D consciousness all the time, very rarely will you feel the 3D dense emotions yourself. Because remember, in order to get to that 5D consciousness and hold it, you have to be able to hold it in your physical form. And the only way you can hold it in your physical form is by clearing out any density that's held within your physical form, including any rage, anger, traumas, pains, all of that, right? And so that allows you to release the 3D density in the physical form, giving you space to access the 5D consciousness easier. And then when you are in that consciousness, you will not be playing as often in a 3D field. You're not going to be playing in victimhood. You're not going to be playing in jealousy. You're not going to be playing in judgment. You're not going to be playing in comparison. You're not going to be playing in any duality or any of that. You're not going to be allowing that, you won't be playing with the ego trying to control you and all of those things. So again, it's a long answer, but it's a great, fabulous question, because it shows how we shift and move. And the higher up you go, higher just meaning the higher frequency, tapping into the higher dimensions, the less of the 3D consciousness you're going to play in. It doesn't mean you can't tap into it, because it's quantum. So you always have the ability to tap into 3D, but you are going to choose not to. So right now, a lot of us, as we start to consciously ascend, or even like a year ago, 2 years ago, we almost felt like victims to this consciousness. Like it was just happening to us and we had no choice, right? All these things are happening to me, and all this, I don't have a choice. I can't get out of this field. Now we know, oh yeah, we can actively, consciously choose, right? And we are actively, consciously ascending. So we're accessing these other consciousness, and we're watching ourselves get out of and stop playing in that 3D field. We're not playing in the paradigms anymore as much as we used to, or the programs, or the way in which we are controlled by humans, programmed by humans in that 3D consciousness. We're stepping out, we're stepping out, we're stepping out, right? So you're going to notice that more and more. Beautiful question. I love that question. I really, really like it. Okay, hold on. What are elementals? Elementals are spirits or light beings, just like you and I, that are existing in usually a 5 or 6 dimensional field. So they dropped into not human form, they dropped into the Earth's existence, the Earth's playground. They've dropped into Earth, but they're holding themselves in a higher frequency. They're holding themselves in a 5 and 6D frequency, but they're holding themselves in a frequency that's more of a light essence that can be kind of tapped into a little bit easier if you're vibrating at their frequency. So you may see them kind of floating around. Same with fairies. Fairies are the same way, right? So they're light beings or higher consciousness beings, higher consciousnesses that are choosing to play on the earth through this aspect called elementals, or aspect called fairies, or aspect called dragons, right? There's so many gnomes. There's so many kind of fairy tale, not real, but real ways in which higher dimensional consciousnesses can be with the earth plane and the human, but not in the human form. So it's a 5 and 6D frequency, light. Typically they're lights. They're vibrating lights. And a lot of humans can see them. So excited for Stargate Circle. I'm so happy you're signing up. Do you have any information about Aura on Pleiades? Pleiades. I don't. Sorry. I do not. But I will see you Wednesday next week. Laura, I'm feeling a sense of peace and relax mode, but almost think like I need to be doing something more. What do we do in those moments? So that's the ego, Laura. Okay. So you just want to get aware of, oh, that's my ego that is wanting me to do more. That's okay. So what happens when you move into higher frequencies, a lot of times you'll notice yourself in a space of kind of presence and calm, peace, quiet. When you're in a present moment state, a lot of times you're not doing, right? And all of a sudden, as you start shifting into these higher frequencies and starting to experience these other consciousnesses, Laura, you start noticing that you're not doing as much. You're slowing down. And it's a little bit uncomfortable because we're not used to it as humans. We're used to always going, 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 having a list, a to-do list. I got my to-do list right here, right? Being, active, active. And when we start to find ourselves in the higher frequencies, like in those moments, Laura, when you're feeling that, I guarantee you, if you were to step on the scale of frequency, your frequency would be high at that point, right? And so you just want to be aware of, wow, this is a moment where I'm actually in a little bit higher frequency. I'm in a more of expanded state. This is awesome. I'm going to take advantage of it. And allow yourself, because there will be a moment where also, let me just preface this also, that in those moments, Laura, there's a lot of creativity and expansiveness that comes in, meaning your channel is open. So in those moments, when you find yourself relaxed, calm, peaceful, not doing anything, those are the moments, at least for myself, where a lot can start to come in or a lot can be kind of coming out. So pay attention that those are the moments where we're actually really open and expanded. The crown is open. Our channel is ready to receive. We are receiving. That's why we're quieting down. That's why we settle down, right? When you're in an expanded state, you're not running around. You're not doing yoga. You're not running a marathon. You're not typing on a computer. When you're in an expanded state, a lot of times you're chill. You're just kind of hanging out, at least in the beginning as we are learning how to do this. And so in those states, pay attention to what the ego is telling you, which is like, I should be doing something beautiful. Thank you so much, ego, right? So you're tapping into higher consciousnesses. You're tapping into 4D and 5D. And your ego's like, wait, don't forget, you're supposed to be down here. And you're like, thank you so much, but I'm experiencing myself in a higher field right now. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Thank you, though. And then notice what is also happening. Because what can happen is you get real quiet in those peaceful times, a day or 2, 3 days, but there's also a lot coming in as well. So it's a really great time to access higher frequencies, access your higher self, access things. Great question. Amy, I have no idea what life means anymore. Nothing feels real. Does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. I've gone through those moments where you are almost feeling like you're losing your mind because you can't understand things anymore. Almost like nothing makes sense. Why are people doing these things? Why do people say these words? I mean, I've gotten to the point sometimes where it's like every word or sentence, it's like, wait, why do we use those words? Wait, why are we doing this? Wait a second. Why are people doing that? I forgot what it was recently. And it was a totally normal thing. It's something that we do all the time. But I was so confused by it. I was like, what? Have we always been doing that? So as you start shifting and tapping into and being in these higher consciousnesses, other dimensional fields, you're going to find yourself observing the 3D playground and thinking, what the hell? What is this? Why do we do this? And there's a confusion and a like a separation of reality almost. So if you're feeling yourself kind of separating from a reality, it's okay. Let yourself have it. Don't Try not to judge yourself around that, because basically what's happening is you're squeezing yourself out of one dimensional field and moving yourself into another dimensional field, trying to get used to that. And you're watching this play out. And it can look very strange when you're not in it anymore, right? So yes, Amy, if nothing feels real, that's just you starting to squeeze yourself out of this matrix, and you're starting to watch it now. And as you become the observer, things can get, you can just start thinking, you're just going to be like, this is so bizarre, right? And then there's days, right, where you're like, oh yeah, I'm playing the game with everybody else. I'm in it, right? But you're always observing, you're always watching, right? Belinda, so what are your thoughts about people that have abused others for a long time? Addicts, liars, thieves. Where is the karmic energy with that? Well, my personal belief is that there's an emotional 3D kind of feeling around it, right? So I will feel sad or I'll feel anger. So in a 3D consciousness, I'm not judging the person. Even in 3D, I don't judge, okay? So, but I may have an emotional response around it, a nauseousness, an anger, a sadness, a grief, whatever. But the way I look at humans that are playing out their human role is that I see them literally as higher dimensional consciousnesses in that physical form that have chosen to play that role out for whatever reason. And although that is a very challenging perspective to take sometimes, that's how I see every human in all the chaos and in all the torture and in all the murders and in everything that's happening. Because when you step out of the 3D consciousness and you start to observe it from a higher perspective, you start to understand the game. It doesn't make it easy, because you're going to emotionally have feelings around it, because you're in this field. You can't escape it. So if somebody kills somebody, if somebody's torturing somebody, if somebody's murdering someone, if someone's doing horrific, abusing someone, you're going to have an emotional reaction to it, right? Until you're in a much higher frequency, and then you won't have an emotional reaction to it. You will see it through the eyes of a higher frequency being like Jesus or Mother Teresa or all these people who looked at each human with love and devotion, because they knew that that person was just living their path. They were just doing their path. They were doing what they came down in to do with their little Akashic record briefcase, right? Light workers and way showers aren't the only ones that are doing life correctly or incorrectly. Every human is doing their life correctly, whether we agree with it and like it or not. Remember, we are in a very dense, large spectrum of consciousness that runs the gamut. And when you drop in, you have a choice as to what you're going to play in. Addiction, abuse, murder, rape, killing, horrific things, love, service work, doctors, scientists, whatever that is, right? There's no right or wrong in any choice that a light being makes when they drop in and decide what they want to do. But once we get into the mix of it all, it becomes very difficult to separate and remember that. Great question. Very hard to do. Candace, I've seen much explosive anger and rage lately. In the last week, I understood that this was supposed to go away. No? I'm not sure if you mean within yourself or within humanity, but anger and rage is part of the 3D consciousness. So it's going to exist in 3D consciousness as long as we're existing in 3D consciousness. So when you start to experience yourself and your reality in a higher frequency, in a higher dimensional field, you personally won't be experiencing the rage and the anger as much, okay? As the collective starts to shift, as the collective meaning the light workers and the way showers start to shift the entire human collective slowly, which is what we're doing, we will start to see anger, rage, rape, destroying the earth. We'll start to see that reduce slowly. So you'll see less of it. Okay. But it's going to take a while, because we have to do it first so that we can pull the entire collective, if they choose to come along into these higher dimensional portals that we're going to be opening for humanity to step into. But you're not going to get rid of anger and rage and any of that stuff. It's part of 3D consciousness. It exists consciousness. It's an opportunity. It's an option in the spectrum. So you can't get rid of it in 3D. The only way you can not experience it is if you are experiencing yourself in a higher field of consciousness. Richard, how is your cleansing? Side effects of raised vibration as an already raised vibe. I have had lead poisoning from work. I'm feeling the flush out. The pain was intense, kidneys and liver. I don't do cleanses. My body doesn't like cleanses. So I don't do cleanses, but I do hot yoga all the time. So I'm always cleansing myself through hot yoga. So I don't exactly know what your question is, Richard, but anything that we can do to, I mean, I really believe, is it already, what time is it? Oh, 4:36. I believe in sweating. I think sweating is a magical way of clearing and cleaning and purging and just like letting your body just sweat it all out. But we each have our own way of cleansing. Some people take baths. Some people just go sit in the sun. It is an important piece, though, I think, in terms of not necessarily cleansing with vegetables and fruits and things like that, or water or whatever, but cleansing just energetically, right? Like I need to cleanse myself energetically, like saging, or I don't know, going and sitting in the sun, or going on a bike ride, or floating down the river somewhere, or sitting on a mountaintop, whatever it is your cleansing is. I'm not exactly sure your question, Richard, but hopefully I kind of answered it. Simone, I have been getting a lot of headaches, waking up with them all day. So a lot of people have been commenting and asking me about headaches lately. And what I can say is that you're starting to assimilate more light than your body is. Your body's trying to catch up with the amount of light that's coming into your form. And so you're feeling it as like an overload of light in the head. Okay, and so you're getting massive headaches, and all you can imagine that your body is trying to assimilate the light as quickly as possible, but it's not doing it fast enough in that now moment. And so the light is sort of kind of getting stopped or blocked, right? And so it's increasing around the head space. So there's a ton of energy in the head space. There's headache feelings. You want to make sure that you're doing your best to kind of don't force yourself to eat things that you don't want, meaning don't stay on a strict vegan diet if your body is actually craving a sausage or a hamburger, right? So a lot of times, not a lot of times, but there will be times where the human isn't trusting what their body is asking for because they're in a different paradigm, right? And so they don't want to listen to what the body's asking them. But if your body is craving certain things, even a cookie, whatever the freak it is, right? Your body's craving it for a reason. So step out of the paradigms that are held in the 3D about diet and start listening to what your body is actually craving. And that might reduce the headaches. It might reduce, sometimes I think what happens is we are so set in a specific paradigm, which is okay, but right now, the time that we're in, this is like no other time in history, right? So we've got to step out of strict paradigms if we need to, in order to allow our body to assimilate and acclimate the light so that we can anchor it. And if there's a lot of light kind of in the head, drink a ton of water, ground yourself down into the earth as much as possible, eat heavy foods, eat the meats if you need to. If you don't want to eat meats, eat something that's heavy, eat something that's going to ground you down to help your body pull the light in. Pull it in, and then eventually you'll find yourself in a higher frequency and you'll go right back to the vegetables and the green juices and all of that. I don't know why I'm talking about diet with you, Simone, but maybe that's something to look at. Maybe your body's craving certain things right now that you're not wanting to tap into or play with because it's like, oh, I don't want that, you know? There's a lot of people with a lot of headaches. So yeah, so just be aware that it's a ton of light coming in. The body's trying to speed up as much as it can to assimilate that light. It's really doing the best it can, but listen to what your body's asking and just do it. Just do it. What are you craving? What are you feeling? What do you need? Okay, let's see. Salts can help. Yeah. Patreon question. Do the Stargate Circle events all happen on YouTube? No, it's a totally different platform, Courtney. Thanks for asking. So on Patreon, you subscribe. You can unsubscribe at any time. But once you're on Patreon, the lives show up right there. So you just go to Patreon and the day and time of my live, and you click the little link, and it opens up right there. So you don't have to do anything. The very first time you go on with me, the very first live I do, you have to put your name in and your email, and they want to make sure that you're registered and on. But after that, every single live, you just go right to Patreon and it'll say live, Lore with Lori, whatever. You click the little link and boom, here comes the video. So it's not on YouTube. It's not on Zoom. It's actually accessed through Crowdcast, but Crowdcast comes right in and they merge together, which is why I chose Patreon, is that it merges with Crowdcast and you don't have to go anywhere. So you don't have to go and find a link and you do all that. It's so simple. I made it really simple for us. So you don't have to try to find it. It's right there on Patreon. Thanks for asking. Great question. Whenever I meditate, Patty, whenever I meditate or connect to oneness, I am overcome with tears. Is this from connecting or human emotions? No. So that is connecting with that energy. So when you connect with energy that is a very high frequency, like source, or, even the Palladians, which isn't even as high. Palladians are like 7th, 8th, 9th, right? When you connect to higher frequencies, it's energy. And energy is felt energetically, and the way we feel it a lot of times is emotion, right? So a lot of times, if you're tapping into higher frequencies, you're going to feel emotion, especially just like welling up of tears. When you tap into massive love, like deep, deep, high potency love, you are a mess. You are bawling and crying and you just are like, you're just a wet mess of tears. So it's not, it is your human emotion, but it's you tapping into the higher frequencies, especially source. So you're connecting to those frequencies and energies. It's beautiful. Colloidal silver, Douglas, is Judy, is good. Colloidal silver I've been using a lot. I got sick last week for an entire week, which I never do, because I had mold in my house, and I drank the colloidal silver, and it really helped. Marilinus, why is my solar plexus in a constant pulsating contraction? It feels like alkaline, heart-centered preparation from downloads. The solar plexus is where the solar plexus is your power point. And it is also the place where you clear and you can purge from that place. So it's almost like the solar plexus is in charge of like circulating the energies in the channel. And if you open up that solar plexus consciously, right, it's like whoosh, the floodgates can open and all this purging can come out. So if you're feeling a pulsation in that solar plexus, there could be a releasing that needs to happen. There could be downloads that are coming in. So a lot of times, so the first piece was about purging and clearing, right? So that does happen out of the solar plexus. You can imagine the solar plexus as like the steering wheel of the car, right? And it kind of controls everything. It's in charge. It's the power point. However, when you are working with higher dimensional consciousnesses, consciously or unconsciously, a lot of times they will access you through different energy centers. So if you are receiving downloads, let's say from the Octurians, they may be moving energy straight into your solar plexus. In fact, that actually occurred in a session that I had with somebody where the Octurians were coming in and they were accessing her, and they were saying that they accessed her through the solar plexus. So if you're feeling pulsations, if you're feeling restrictions or tightness, if you're feeling anything in any of these centers, you want to be aware, because it could be that you are receiving energy from higher frequency consciousnesses working with you, and it's coming in these spots, or you're purging and clearing out of that spot, or there's density stuck in that spot that needs to be cleared out. And again, you can clear it out through the solar plexus, or you can clear it out all the way down the root. It's up to you. Yeah, the eyesight, Lynn, is has a lot to do with frequencies and where and your body acclimating and assimilating. There will be times where I can't see at all. Like if I do a really powerful group session with the Palladians or the Arcturians or whatever, right? And I come out of that session, I can't read for a while. I cannot read. My eyes are so blurry. If I come out of a session, if I come out of anything where I have been in a higher frequency channeling or downloading, when I come out of it, I can't see. So your eyes are a really good way of seeing kind of where you're at frequency wise, because again, everything's trying to acclimate. Your body's trying to acclimate and assimilate the energies and the frequencies. And so your eyes are trying to acclimate as well when you are in the expanded state. It's like, sometimes you just can't see, you can't, again, remember there's 3-dimensional fields. I don't know if you were here in the very beginning of the live, Len, but I was talking about multidimensionality and that there's 3 dimensions around us at all times. Well, there's way more, way more. But for most of us, we're tapping into 5. I know people are tapping into 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but I'm just going to say the majority of us, what we're doing. Okay. And so you're tapping into these and you're also physically experiencing them energetically. So you're energetically feeling them physically. So your eyes are going to get all cuckoo and wonky. Okay. Let's see. I'm getting downloads concerning our prolonged, this is Lashish. Sorry if I butchered your name. I'm very sorry about that. Lashish. I'm getting downloads concerning our prolonged livelihood on Earth, shortage of resources like food and water. That could be a reality in a 3D consciousness. It is not a reality in the higher consciousnesses. So as we collectively shift into 5D, the Earth is already in a 5D field and she has all the resources she needs in that field. If, as the human collective chooses and decides to come along with the way showers and the light workers that are opening up these 2 portals, the 4th dimension and the 5th dimension, there will not be lack. There will not be not enough. There will not be famine in the world. None of those things exist on the earth in this higher dimension. So in a 3rd dimension, that could be a timeline that people are looking at and seeing and living in and believing and playing in. That timeline does not exist when you start to access higher fields of consciousness where the earth has already brought herself. Again, we're multidimensional. The earth is multidimensional. The earth is already anchored into a 5D field. We are not anchored in 5D yet. Okay, we're anchored in 3 and 4D, right? And the earth has already done this physical process. She's anchored in 5D. And the human collective will eventually have the opportunity to stand in her 5D field with her. That famine, not having enough water, food, those kinds of things is a timeline existing in this 3D consciousness that may or may not play out. But if you're consciously ascending, you most likely won't be playing in that timeline. So you're probably getting downloads about a timeline on 3D consciousness, but depends on if you want to stay in that consciousness or not. Kimberly, why does it seem so many relationships are ending now? I think everybody on here could probably answer that question. You, Kimberly, could probably answer that question. So the reason why so many relationships, it's a beautiful question. The reason why, you should go watch my YouTube video I did about 2 weeks ago on relationships. It explains relationships right now. Okay, I have 10 minutes left. I'm watching my time. I hate ending. I want to just keep going. Okay. The reason why relationships are ending right now is because we, as my humanness is shifting into higher fields of consciousness. And when I start shifting into higher fields of consciousness, that way of being that I used to be, right, in a lower field of consciousness, I'm no longer being. So here's Lori in a 3.5 consciousness, and I believed these things. I held these paradigms. I held these programs. I held these belief systems. I had these friends around me. I had these relationships around me. I had these jobs around me. I was a certain way. I brought things to me energetically. I experienced relationships a certain way, right? This is who I was, and this is what I did for so many years at a 3.5. As you start to shift into higher frequencies and a higher consciousness, you start to experience yourself differently. So you don't believe or play in the same paradigms as you were down here. You're not believing in the same programs. You're not thinking the same things you used to think down here. You're not resonating with the same people that you did down here. And I'm not saying it as a better than or less than in terms of like, oh, I'm up here now. I'm just in terms of just understanding how frequency shifts. It's a higher frequency. And so when the human starts to consciously ascend, the way in which they were being in that lower frequency, they're not being anymore. And so all of a sudden their whole world gets rattled because what used to resonate doesn't resonate. People they used to be able to hang out with anymore, all of a sudden they can't hang out with them anymore. They're irritating them. They can't be around it anymore. They can't listen to the complaining anymore or the victimhood anymore, right? There's so many things that shift as you start to shift your frequency. And it becomes a matter of listening to that resonance, listening to how you're feeling, listening to what you need, and then navigating that. This shift in relationships is a potent challenge. And it's learning how to navigate it courageously, with compassion for both people, understanding that this is all it is. It's contracts ending, right? And it's you continuing to ascend and other humans choosing not to in that now moment with no wrong or right to it. It just is. But the reason relationships are ending, and so many of them are, or shifting, and contracts are ending, is because one of those humans are consciously ascending into a higher frequency where they are being in a different state. They are believing different things. They are holding different paradigms. Everything's shifting. That's why. Okay. Lavella, how do you quantum jump into your desired reality? How do you feel your way into your desired reality if you've never experienced it? Okay, so you have to understand that it already is. Okay, so let's say that your desired reality is to be doing the divine blueprint that you brought in with you when you dropped into human form. Purpose work, driven work, service work, whatever, right? And that's what you want. That's what you want to focus on. That is already done. That exists. So when you quantum jump, basically what you're doing is you are recognizing that there is an aspect of you that is already doing that. It's done. So you in a 3D field or a 4D field now have to jump into it, right? And it's very challenging when you're in a very low vibration. How do you jump into that, right? So you have to start to hold this. This aspect of you in another space and time, another timeline is in you. It is you. Especially if that's where you want to be. So you start to hold it as if it is happening, as if it is real, as if it is now. You are just trying to catch up to it. And then you begin to play in it like it's now. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What are you doing? What are you experiencing? How does it feel? 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 But you have to stay in the present moment. Okay? So you don't move into the future of, oh, I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for that. You stay present in, I am that. I am this. I am this. I am doing my service work. I'm doing my service work. What does it feel like? It feels like joy and peace and love, right? Are you actually doing your service work in this now moment? No, but you're staying in the present moment, holding this timeline in your now moment so that eventually you increase your frequency and vibration to that higher quantum timeline that you're jumping into. It's not a quantum timeline, this higher timeline that's in the quantum field. And all of a sudden, boom, the next thing you know, very slowly, perhaps very quickly, who knows, but you all of a sudden find yourself randomly, like in the work. All of a sudden there's opportunity. All of a sudden a door opens. All of a sudden it's happening. You're not planning it. You're not future basing yourself, right? You're not trying to think of the future like, I can't wait until this happens. I can't wait until this happens. The way you jump into this other quantum aspect of you is that you hold it now in you. It's you. I'm it. I'm doing it. I'm feeling it. I am it. This is awesome. I can't believe it. This is so great. Even though in the reality that you're in, it's not happening yet. The higher we go in vibration, the faster we can jump timelines or shift into another quantum space, right? The slower our vibration, the lower our frequency is vibrating, the harder it is. It's like quicksand right now. And that's the same with manifestation and intention setting, right? As you start to increase your vibration and increase your frequency, you can more easily tap into the timelines. You can more easily create and intend for something to happen now in your reality, manifest, right? And many of us are starting to notice manifestation happening much faster because we are starting to increase our own frequency, move into higher states of consciousness. And then when that happens, all of a sudden we're capable of shifting into another timeline, jumping into another quantum space, accessing whatever it is we want to access along our now moment, which is, there's an infinite amount of possibilities that you can access in any now moment. When you become that multidimensional being that you are, you realize that not only is there 3, 4, 5, but there's so many other dimensions, right? And there's so many aspects of you playing in all of this. What do I want to be? But you can't escape where you are. So you stay present with where you are. You don't get frustrated with it, right? But you tap into, oh, that's the aspect of me I'm going to jump into. Okay, so it's not over there. It's here. It's me. Now I've got to just be it now, even though it's not happening yet. That's how you create it. That's how you intend it. That's how you manifest it. What does it feel like? What does it look like? The excitement, the joy, it's you, you have it, and then you have patience because we're in a very low frequency. Okay, 3 minutes left. Devin, I think there's a lot more teenagers. I woke up when I was 16. I'm wondering if there's more teenagers that are waking up, or is it mostly adults? I think there are a ton more teenagers now waking up than ever before. I woke up when I was 13 back in 1989, and no one was waking up at that age. No one. Now there are many, many, many young kids, and I wouldn't even say they're waking up. I would say that they're already awake. It's a different sort of waking up, right? That's happening with a lot of children now and a lot of teenagers. It's almost like they just are now. They just are tapped in. They're awake. They don't necessarily have to go through the same awakening process that we did. So there's a lot more teenagers for sure waking up. When I'm in deep meditation, Ashes, sometimes I feel strong vibrations in my hands, almost like a whiplash feeling. Is this part of the ascension symptoms? When I'm in deep meditation, I feel strong vibrations in my head. Oh, in my head. Sorry, I thought you said hand. Strong vibrations in my head. Okay, so there's a couple things. It's not an ascension symptoms per se. It's that it's you needing to get down into your body more. Okay, so what it feels like is happening is there's it's almost like your higher self is trying to keep you down in your form. So your higher self is trying to keep you in the body, because listen, we have to stay in our body when we expand, when we meditate, when we shift into higher frequencies. We have to stay in the body. The body's the one that's doing it all. But we have done this for so long in the past where we try to expand out. It sounds like, Ashes, what's happening is, if I can tap into kind of what I'm hearing right now, your higher self is trying to keep you down into your physical form as you are expanding out, right? And we expand out through the head, and we also receive the frequencies from the head, the seventh energy center. I think what's happening to you is that you're being asked to stay in the body, stay with the breath. Where's my breath? Where's my body? Where are my toes? Where are my feet? Where's my ankles? Where's my sit bones? And you want to bring that energy down. So the next time you meditate and you feel that, literally imagine that you're opening the floodgates by the throat chakra and you're allowing the energy to come all the way down. Let the energy go all the way down to your toes, all the way to your feet. Bring it down. Try that. It's not necessarily an ascension symptom that you're experiencing. I think you're experiencing too much high energy, not bringing it all the way down. You're not coming all the way down into your body. Okay, I have to go. One more question. I think I may pop on a little bit later tonight, you guys, maybe around 8 p.m. to answer more questions. So 8 p.m. Pacific, I'm going to jump back in. So come back at 8. Okay, I'm having eyesight problems too, but just the left eye. Okay, one more question. Hi, Pegasus. I'm glad you're here. How to view our goal. Is there a destination? There's never a destination. There's always just the now moment. How do you anchor? That's a really big, long question. I will answer that later, because anchoring it's your body doing it. Your body's anchoring. We don't really have to worry about anchoring. Your body's anchoring. But if you want to participate in it and kind of be aware of it, you anchor with your breath. You want to find your breath. Where's my breath? Where's my breath? Where's my breath? Your breath is going to anchor you into the body. It's going to bring you into the body, right? So you always are trying to find the breath, and you're always trying to stay in the body with the breath. That's going to anchor you down. The breath is the lighthouse in, and it's the anchor. Once you're in your form, you're anchored in. You're not going anywhere. And how do you stay in your form? You find the breath and you stay with the breath. Then you're anchored, right? We talk about grounding and doing all these like grounding techniques and, a cord that goes all the way down. You don't need that. If you're in your form, you're safe. Your form is grounded down. So find the breath, hang out with your breath, and you're anchored in. When you find yourself expanding out, where's my breath? I guarantee you're not connected to your breath. Whew, back to my breath, and your breath will connect you back into the body. As long as you're connected to the breath, you'll feel anchored. Finding your sit bones, right? Where's my sit bones? Where's my body? Where is my body? When you're walking around, where's my body? Do I feel my feet on the ground? I'm anchoring in every step I take. When I'm driving my car, where are my hands? My hands are on the steering wheel. Okay, my hands are on the steering wheel. I'm anchoring into my body. When I'm filling up gas, where's my hand? Oh, it's on the gas thing, right? So every now moment, you're always focusing on where the physical form is, what it's doing, and that's how you anchor. Okay, you guys, that was so quick. I want to do more questions, so I'll probably come back and do a part 2 tonight at 8 p.m. because I want to answer more of your questions. So if you can come back at 8 p.m. Pacific, do join me. If not, come back and you'll hear the replay. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. I'm going to put the link down below for the StarGate Circle that we're starting, the community that's on Patreon. I'll also put the Octurian journey we're doing October 24th. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. You're a gift to this entire Earth journey, and be gentle with yourselves. Have compassion. Give yourself a big fat hug for being in your physical form. And I'll see you at 8 p.m. tonight. Lots of love.